Hello world, and welcome to Web Dev Frontiers. My name is Tamas, and I'm here to share my experience with you in web technologies. And in today's video, we're going to talk about how to properly copy objects inside JavaScript. If you're ready, let's jump in. A very common use case inside JavaScript applications is the ability to be able to copy objects. And you have to be very careful about how you actually copy an object in JavaScript. So let's walk through all the options that you have, and let's talk about which one is the best option and which one is the worst option. Now, what you see on my screen here is a sample object where we have a property called name with a value of Superman, and we're just going to print out the original object inside my browser. And by the way, I'm using a vanilla JavaScript project using Vite. And so far, no surprises here. Inside the browser, we do get the original property printed. So let's create a copy of this. And you may be inclined to create a copy of your object in the way that I've done it. So you create a new variable and you make that equal to the object that you would like to copy. However, it is really important to understand that this is not going to create an actual copy of the object itself, but rather you are copying the reference to the object. So what that means is that inside the memory somewhere, copy object and my object will refer to the same address inside your memory. So how does that materialize? Why is that a problem? So let's demonstrate that. Let's say that inside the original object or even the copy object, you would like to make a change. It doesn't matter where you make the change, but let's make the change in my object, and you say my object.name, instead of Superman, it should now be Batman. And notice that we do this operation after we have supposedly created a copy of the original object. And let's add a console.log line statement here as well to print out the copy object. And let's see the result inside our browser. And as you can see, unfortunately, both the original and the copy show the name Batman. So this verifies that in fact what happened, we copied the reference to the object, but the object is still being stored in the same memory address, and therefore if we update it, any references to that object will pick up the change. Okay, so let's see what we can do in order to avoid this. And what you can do is call object.assign and use it like this, where you specify the first element of the assign method to be an empty object, and the second one is going to be the object that you would like to copy. So let's save this and let's see how the behavior changes by using object.assign instead of making copy object equal to my object. And notice here inside the browser, the original object has the Batman property, but the copy still has the Superman value for the name property, indicating that the copy was successful and we actually copied how the original object looked like into a variable. There's actually an easier way to do this by using the spread syntax. So I could create an empty object and I could just specify my object here like this, and the result, if we check it in the browser, is going to be exactly the same. Okay, so far so good. However, there's going to be a little bit of a problem here. All right, so far so good. Now, I would like to show you one more thing that you can achieve with this particular syntax. So when you use this option, you can actually specify the properties that you would like to attach to the copied object, or you can also specify an existing property with a new value. So as opposed to us saying that the my object name should be Batman, let's actually change the copy object name. So let's go ahead and add name here, and let's change this to Batman. So this time around, the copied object will have a name property and it's going to be set to be Batman. So in one line, we can actually copy an existing object and change a value inside an existing property. So let's take a look at the browser right now. And as you can see, the original is Superman, but the copy now has the name Batman. And what's really great about this is, of course, we can add additional properties. And that would be represented when we open this up in the browser. So this allows us to manipulate the object in any way that we want to. And this is really great. It's a really simple syntax. Okay, so let's actually remove this. And now let's take a look at an example where we're going to be facing a problem. So far so good. However, what happens if we have deeply nested properties? Can we copy an object with deeply nested properties. So let's actually try that, and let's update our original object here by adding a superpowers property, which will then have a canFly property, which will have the value true. Okay, so if we copy that, let's go ahead and see what happens. Okay, so it seems that the copy worked because we have Superman, superpowers, canFly true, and we have the exact same copy. Excellent. So let's see if we can actually update some of these values and if our functionality is still going to be intact. So I'm going to update the original object, and I'm going to update the name property to say Batman and see what happens. Okay, so we now have the original set to be Batman, and it seems to still work. But let's see what happens if I try to change the nested property value. So notice that I am using the original object again, and I set the canFly deeply nested property to false. So I'm going to hit save. Let's go back to the browser. Let's expand these two properties and see what we get. Well, something is a little bit off. If you notice, the canFly property changed for both instances. So the approach that we have here, unfortunately, cannot be utilized for situations when we have deeply nested properties inside objects. But do not fret, we do have a solution for that as well. In fact, I'm going to show you two solutions. One solution has been around for quite a while. The other one has recently emerged inside modern browsers, and that is actually my preference. So let's take a look at the solution that has been around for quite a while first. Now, as opposed to copying the object like this, we can just use a trick where we can first create a string of this object, and we can reparse that string to be a JSON object. And of course, we have these methods available in JavaScript, and they are json.stringify and json.parse. And this is how that line would look like. So again, just to reiterate, we use json.stringify to create a string version of the original object, and then we reparse that to be a valid JavaScript object, and that's what we store as the copy object variable. And now we are going to see what happens if we change the original object's name and canFly properties. And if we go back to the browser, notice that the original has the value of Batman and canFly is false, but the copy still contains the information as it was when we first copied the object. So the name is Superman, and the canFly deeply nested property value is set to be true. But this syntax is a little bit odd. It does work, don't get me wrong, but I'm not really a fan. Now, luckily for us, there's a new function inside JavaScript that you can very safely use in modern browsers. And that function is called structured clone. So all I need to do is just call that function and pass it the object that I would like to copy. And the structured clone function is going to take care of everything for us. Everything that we looked at so far is going to work exactly in the same way. So let's hit save, go back to the browser, and notice that we get exactly the same result that we got with the JSON parse and JSON stringify functions. But I like this approach a lot better because it's cleaner and it's also more straightforward, and it's kind of expressive in terms of what it's trying to achieve. I'm also going to put up something on the screen right now where you can see in which browsers you can actually use the structured clone function. Now, if you have to target browsers that are really old, which I really hope you don't, and if you do, my condolences, but there could be situations when you actually have to target those older browsers. So what you can do, you can actually check the existence of the structured clone function by using this if statement. So you can say if type of structured clone is equal to function, then use that. Otherwise, you can just fall back to using the JSON parse and JSON stringify way of copying an existing object. And there you have it. I showed you the right way to copy an object using JavaScript. And using this technique, it doesn't really matter if your object is a simple one or it has deeply nested properties and values. It will always work, and it's going to work in a way that the copy is actually going to be a new copy, not just a reference copy, meaning that you're going to have a brand new object as opposed to referencing an already existing object inside memory. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like. Also, do subscribe for more such content, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.